Lewis Carroll said the situation in Iraq is getting curiouser and curiouser. We're not quite sure what's going on. They have a big refinery there that puts out about 1/3 of the refined products for the nation of Iraq. The ISIS claims they have taken it. The government of Iraq says, no, we've got it back. Fighting is still going on, and Iraq is asking the United States for help against those terrorists, as I say, are attacking throughout the country.
That's right. The terrorists have also targeted Christians there. Chris Mitchell brings us this report from the front lines of the battle.
We left the friendlier confines of Erbil, heading towards the historic area of Nineveh, now known as Mosul, home to some of Iraq's besieged Christians.
So this is the end line. We cannot go anymore.
Our guide, Pastor Majid, brought us as far as the Kurdish army, called a Peshmerga, would let us go. This is about the end of the line if you don't want to run into ISIS. We've been told they control the mountains behind us right now, and a few kilometers down the road you'd run into an ISIS checkpoint. This is the town called Bartilla. It has about 25,000 Christians in it, but we couldn't find one that would talk to us on camera because they're afraid of retribution. The conditions here are abysmal. There's no water because ISIS has turned it off, and no electricity because the Maliki government has turned that off. They are protected by the Peshmerga, who have set up a perimeter around this town and a few other towns around here. Without that, they know that ISIS would come in and kill most of the people here. They're asking for prayer for Christians around the world, and one Christian leader told me, just like the Apostle Paul asked for prayer, they're asking for prayer that God will protect this town and this region. Bartilla lies just a few miles from Nineveh, or Mosul, the first major victory for ISIS just days ago. We found the town nearly deserted. While Christians in the town wouldn't be seen on camera, we talked to one of the house church leaders. On our way back to the Kurdish capital, Erbil, Pastor Majid relays what he said. He told us when ISIS captured Nineveh, they gave Christians 3 choices.
They are not allowed to open their churches, and even if they opened, they are going to burn the churches. And also the Christians being asked to pay the tax. If not, they can leave Nineveh, and if they didn't left and they didn't pay the tax, they should give their heads.
When you say give their heads, you're talking about being beheaded.
Yeah.
In the midst of this cauldron surrounding them, this church leader sent out a prayer SOS.
Raise up prayers for us. This is what we need. When man is praying, God is working. So it is important for the churches outside Iraq to raise up prayers and also to fast for the sake of the people of Iraq.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, on the road from Bartilla to Erbil.
That's the way it is, folks. That's the religion of peace. That's what George Bush said once upon a time. It's a religion of peace. Don't you believe one word of it. ISIS is strong Muslim. They want to set up a Muslim caliphate that goes all the way from Syria across Iraq, and then ultimately they want to take over Europe. They have big, big ambitions. They can be stopped. They need to be stopped. But you look, there are a bunch of ragtags riding in pickup trucks. This isn't a big formal army, but somehow the Iraqi military has just fallen apart, thrown down their weapons and fled. It makes no sense at all. Huge, overwhelming force. And now what's going on, Maliki is saying, well, please help me. There's a headline today in the paper, the U.S. is calling for Maliki to step down. That's way too late. But what influence could we have had if we'd left 25,000 troops there? We could have had a status of forces agreement. If we'd had that, then we'd have influence and leverage. But we didn't do any of those things because we have a president who is not engaged. So those Christians in that little town run the risk of being beheaded by the religion of peace. Well, the crisis in Iraq is also hitting Americans here at home. Guess what? At the gas pump. Just as the holiday driving season gets underway, John Jessup has more of that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington.
Pat, the price of oil is rising, and so is the cost of many other essentials like meat, fish, and eggs. And as Caitlin Burke reports, Americans should expect to pay even more in the months ahead.
The summer travel season is here, a time when gas prices often drop. But not this year. The current national average for a gallon of gasoline is $3.67. That's higher than it's been since 2008. High costs are being blamed in part on the instability in Iraq. According to AAA, both gas prices and global oil prices have steadily risen since jihadists took control of Mosul last week. High demand and the cost of drilling also play a role in the high price consumers are seeing at the pump.
A lot more expensive to drill for oil today, so we need higher prices. And again, if you look at the history going back for the last 4 years anyway, oil prices have been pretty stable. They tend to swing, from the 105 range back down to the 93 range. And one of these days it's going to break out above that. And I'm afraid we may be close to that happening just simply because of more demand.
The cost of food is also skyrocketing. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the price index for meats, poultry, fish, and eggs hit an all-time high in May. Meat costs are rising the fastest. A 7-year decline in herds has left the fewest cattle in at least 6 decades. Analysts warn the high prices for both food and gas are here to stay. To make matters worse, Senate lawmakers actually proposed legislation this week to raise the federal gas and diesel taxes by 12 cents per gallon over the next 2 years. That proposal was pitched as a way to pay for highway and transit programs. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Pat, it looks like some tough times ahead.
Well, they're a lot tougher for people living in other countries. We've got it so much easier. As far as gasoline, our gasoline is probably a third the price of what it is in Europe. And, we were riding on an abundance. In about a year, if the government will keep their hands off the oil and gas industry, we will probably be self-sufficient in oil. Unbelievable. Nobody thought it would be possible. But their drilling rigs, they've got new techniques now. They talked about fracking as a big deal. Now they've got what they call stacked pays. They put a rig in, and now they drill 4 laterals. They go down and they hit one, then they go out for another and another and another. So they're producing as many as 4 zones at a time with one rig, and the time of drilling is shrunk to matter of a couple of weeks. I mean, it's unbelievable how efficient our oil industry is, and we owe them a great debt, but I'm sure Congress won't like it. They want to do everything they can to get their hands on it. Well, I have been disgusted, absolutely disgusted, at the conduct of the Internal Revenue Service. They have the right to pry into all of our documents. They can put a hold on our bank accounts. They can come in and, subpoena every document you've got in your house. They can look at all the things you're doing. They can appraise your house, your car, your tuition, and how many grandchildren you've got, and then decide you're not paying enough taxes. They can be very dictatorial in that power. But somehow, they think the law doesn't apply to them. John.
Pat, the emails of a former IRS official are likely gone forever. They were a key part of the investigation into the IRS Tea Party targeting scandal. Sources tell Politico the computer hard drive where Lois Lerner's emails were stored was recycled. Some experts thought they could be recovered, but now they say that seems very unlikely. Congress held Lerner in contempt after she refused to testify about the investigation. The Washington Redskins say they will appeal a ruling from the U.S. Patent Office. The office canceled 6 federal trademark registrations, calling the name Redskins, quote, disparaging to Native Americans. The office says that violates the Trademark Act. But the team's trademark attorney says the Redskins will still use the registrations during the appeals process, which likely will last for years. Some analysts say the ruling does increase the political pressure on the Redskins to change their name. Pat?
I may be showing my age, but I knew the guy named Gus Walsh, who was their coach. He was an Indian, Native American, whatever, and they named the team after him. in honor of Gus Walsh. That was to honor him, and that's the way it was. And then there was a guy named Jim Thorpe, who was an Indian, who was one of the most incredible backs that's ever lived, played football. And I don't know if he played for Washington or not, but he did. He was a star, I think, in Chicago. But in any event, this was an honor of Gus Welch, an honor. And now it's, quote, disparaging. So the trademark office says, we're going to take away your logo. Well, they can't take away the common law use of it. They can take away the registration. But sure enough, the Dan Snyder, who owns the team, is going to appeal and say you're taking away my property without due process of law. And the federal courts will reverse the finding of the patent office and say it's a time-honored logo, you've had it forever. But they've got the Blackhawks, you've got the Cleveland Indians, you've got the Atlanta Braves, you've got that bunch down there in Florida State where they drive you crazy with that tomahawk chant. I mean, just drive you crazy with that nonsense. And now they've got the cow, you know, of Chick-fil-A doing that tomahawk thing. I mean, and that's not disparaging. It drives the fans crazy. John.
Pat, with only 2 days until the official start of summer, the United States is experiencing both summer and winter all at once. A heat wave is hitting the East Coast with temperatures over 90 degrees, shattering records for this time of the year. In Philadelphia, kids were sent home early from school because it got too hot. And here in Washington, D.C., we've already seen the thermostat go up to 94 degrees. Meanwhile, a rare June snowfall hit the mountains of Utah and Wyoming earlier this week. Some areas of Utah getting as many as 9 inches.
California, so snow in June is a bit odd.
We signed up for a little sun, not for summer, for a little sun, but that turned out to be a little different.
The National Weather Service predicts above normal temperatures for both coasts and the South this summer. And Pat, I think we both can agree this is extreme weather.
I didn't even ride yesterday. I wasn't going to expose my horse.
You planned to, and then you had to cancel.
I have a thermometer, a little thing on the window right outside my kitchen, and I looked at that yesterday afternoon. Would you like to guess at how hot it was outside of my kitchen in the sun?
Well, I know my car said 103. What did your thermometer say?
Would you like to guess? This is Tidewater, Virginia in June.
104? 105?
121.
No way.
121 degrees in the sun, not heat index, and the heat index would have pushed it up to 125.
Good grief.
That's right outside my kitchen. Oh, terrible. John.
Pat, a Food and Drug Administration panel has given its support for a new electronic implant for people who are severely obese. The idea is that the implant will help curb the appetite by stimulating nerves in the stomach. It's designed for people who have tried to lose weight by traditional methods but haven't been able to. Health Day News reports the implant helped people lose about 8 to 9% more in weight in trials than people who didn't have it. The FDA usually follows the panel's recommendations, so it may be likely to approve the implant for sale. And Pat, according to one article I read, the device will only be available to patients whose body mass index are 40 or at least 40, which is of course considered obese.
I don't understand what's going. Yes, I do. It's high fructose corn syrup. It's in everything. And the fast food industry sets that stuff in motion to make you want more of them. They don't want you to eat one Big Mac. They want you to eat one every day or more. They don't want you to eat one cracker. They want you to eat a box of crackers. That's what they do. They sell that stuff, and they've set it in motion so that it makes you hungry all the time.
People of faith are more likely to give money to charitable causes than non-believers. That's according to a new study commissioned by the BBC. It shows almost 80% of British citizens with religious beliefs donated money in the past month. That includes 82% of Jews and 78% of Christians. Only about 2/3 of non-believers had given money. Well, an atheist or born-again Christian, which one would you like in the family? More Americans would prefer a born-again Christian marry into their family. than an atheist. That's the finding from a new poll by the Pew Research Center. They surveyed Americans with a wide range of views. About 1/3 say they'd be happy if an immediate family member married a born-again Christian. But nearly half say they'd be unhappy if a family member married someone who says they do not believe in God. You can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.